Howdy again, welcome back to the shop. It's Mr. Pete, and this is Machine Shop Tips number 632, entitled Making a BORE-RITE Indicator Holder for your Criterion boring head. Now make sure you go back and watch part 1, which is tip 631, or this will not make sense to you. It's a rather long video, and this is what I'm making. I've already partially made it. It's half done, so this is the second half. Also, at the end of this video will be a rather long segment, and that's optional. It's extra credit. It's 10 minutes worth of casting and molding where I take the wooden pattern and I make the casting, and I'll show you that. Some of you are sick and tired of seeing all of that, but others are quite interested in it. So that is extra credit. So let's get started. To repeat myself, you are watching this video. Make sure you have already watched part 1. In teacher training, we were taught 3 things. First of all, tell the class what you're going to tell them. And number 2, actually tell them. And then number 3, tell them what you told them. So there is some of that in my videos. So this again were my prototypes and the way I think. You know, that was number 1. Made out of cardboard, and number 2 made out of wood, and number 3 a little more refined made out of wood, and then made out of PVC, and then one actually made out of aluminum, and then an actual one made from a wooden pattern and a casting. Alright, and this is how far I have progressed in the last one. So we're going to continue from this point to this point, the finished one. And a review on what this thing actually does. Well, here's the Criterion boring head with a boring bar installed, and with the starret indicator in the BORE-RITE. Now, I've called this thing a BORE-RITE. I think I made that term up, but I hope I'm not infringing on somebody's copyright. But it allows you to adjust the boring head far more accurately with an indicator than what you could do with this little dial. Watch the indicator. See, I can move it minute amounts very accurately with a large dial, not a tiny dial that is as small as a dime. Sorry, but there are no blueprints for this. All the dimensions and everything is in my head. But the next thing I'm going to do is to put this thumb screw hole in. And the purpose of that, of course, is just to clamp this onto the boring head. And I'm not sure what size that is to be. Oh, 1032. Well, I already took the liberty, and quite a liberty it was, to punch the hole. So I'm going to drill that and then tap it 1032 off camera. You don't need to see that, but notice that there's a layout line there, and those layout lines were made, I know they don't show up, they were made while the aluminum plug was still in here, and I knew where the center hole was. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to locate things like that, other than bagasse and bagasse. So I'll be back momentarily with the hole tapped. I told you I'd be right back. Now, you can get these little thumb screws at any dime store, 1032, but I don't like the looks of those. I like the looks of a knurled knob, and I just am fortunate enough to have a nice selection of those. And this is a relatively large diameter, so they're available, but you might have to make one. And you may have to cut it to length because that's way too long. So there's the one that I really like, but I will have to cut that to length. I'll do that off camera, or try to find another one in here that is a 1032. Also, it would be nice to have a brass one so it doesn't make any mark on your precision criterion boring head. Alright, what to do next? The beauty of the original bore set is that it could be quickly clamped around and snapped into place, you know, real quickly compared to what I'm doing here. You see, mine can't be slid over this because this will be in the collet, and it won't be able to be put on from this end because, of course, of the dovetail and the offset and all of that. So that's why it has to be split like this, so that it can go over that part. And the diameter of that is that. Therefore, this is just a little bit wider. But I'm going to lay that out now and saw it off, and this is throwaway. Remember, that's my handle. I've already got a little center punch mark there. Can you see that? And I believe I had that on from the original pattern. And I wish I would have scribed those deeper in the original pattern so that they would have shown up on the rough casting. So that's how I'm laying it out, just roughly. These standard dial indicators, no matter who makes them, have about a 3/8 shank right here and 1-inch range. Now I know there's all kinds of other ones. It would be handy if it didn't have this lug on, but I do not intend to cut that off, but some are available without the lugs. And of course I'm wanting to drill this hole, and that'll be reamed 3/8 such that that will fit as such. This is 1/2 inch high right here, 1/2 inch high. So we've only got, 50 or 60 thousandths there. I'm going to do this on the milling machine, and I'm going to drill from this side rather than from this side. And I've already laid that out. Found the center this way, and about 270 thousandths, I think, down from the top. Anyway, find the middle. I like to lay all my cutting tools out orderly and neat. I like everything clean when I start, and I like to wear my safety glasses. Now I've taken this little square and I've made sure that the work is square, and now with this wiggler I'm going to find the edge and then move in about 375 thousandths. So let's find that edge, but I could go by the layout line that I got also. You know what I like about this wiggler? It's not only an edge finder, but it has a pointer on it. And that's the only one I have that I've ever seen like that. I don't know what brand it is, but I rather favor it. So now it's trued up again, and I'll find the center, and then I'll lock the table in both axes. Right there. Well, I put a center drill in, but it's not going to reach. Can you see that? There's an interference there between the chuck and the work, so I'm going to use this long center drill. A mighty handy tool to have. If I were to make this over from scratch, a new pattern and everything, I would make this just a little bit higher here because I do have quite a thin wall here. Quite a thin wall, as you can see. That's not going to hurt anything, but next, when we put the indicator in, you'll see that this stem here is not really all that long, so I do not want to locate this set screw hole in the middle. Let me show you right there. So I am going to put the set screw hole right there, and through the magic of television I will go over and drill and tap that, and let's see, what size is that going to be? I have forgotten. 832. Well, we're getting near the end. Thank you for watching. Tell your friends about my videos. Leave a thumbs up if it should so move you. This thumb screw really should be brass because I don't really want to mar my starret indicator. But again, you can move that in different positions. I talked about that before. Now let me show you a potential change that could be made to this. Alright, with the BORE-RITE mounted on the boring head, notice also that this gap here provides you a window to read that should you want to, and access to that set screw. But what I was going to say here is that even in the original one that I showed you the patent drawing for, there was a minimum space in here, and the owner talked about the fact that this device has a range. In other words, if I advance this too far, at some point the dovetail is going to strike. And that could all be remedied or changed or increased or whatever by cutting a little bit of the aluminum out. In other words, all right here. And of course that would be done on the wooden pattern. But just a point that I'm making. Might be a little bit of an irrelevancy. Now, referring back to the original patent drawing here for the bore set, there, number 27 is that little pin. And it's spring loaded and it's most difficult to make. And let me show you the purpose of it. Alright, there's that little pin on one of my mock-ups, and here it is on the final prototype, number 6. It's 3/8 in diameter, and I have a little device here to release it. Otherwise you can't get this off of the boring head. And let me tell you what the purpose of it is. Okay, the purpose of it is to lock this into position, but it's kind of a fussy thing. As you can see, I'm having trouble getting it in right now. There. Okay. It locks it into position so that you have perpendicularity, and so it positions this in the exact spot. In other words, it centers it. But as I said, it's a fuddy-duddy thing to make. And I'm not going to make it for this final one. It's going to be without it. But let me take this apart and show you what it looks like and why I'm not in the mood for doing it again. This needed something to keep it from spinning, but you get into a lot of small parts. And this alone is almost more difficult than the rest of the project together. So here we have a hole, and it's a blind hole. But in one of the prototypes I thought, well, I'm to avoid a blind hole, I was going to plug it. But that's... This is aluminum, could be steel, 3/8 diameter, with a very light spring on it. A little hole drilled and tapped. You get back into little parts, and then here another little part that's way too difficult to make. But if you don't have this, in other words, you say, well, just use a screw, you dummy. Well, it's really quite a binder when you just use a screw and you try to back it off. It just binds like crazy on it. Let me show you why. Well, it's proving me wrong now, but it seemed like it would bind on me before. But notice you got to have a little slot. It has to be perfectly centered, so it's fussy. It's something you don't want to do if you don't have to. That's why I'm not going to do it again, because I did it enough on all of my samples to where I'm tired of it. So I'm going to see if this isn't perfectly functional without that. And again, that little pin in the hole here helps the tip of the indicator to be in the right spot, not off to the side on the dovetail. But can this just be put on like that and centered by, in other words, eyeballing it here so it's about equal distance? But also, you got to be careful not to get this thing setting down onto the dovetail so there's interference. In other words, not down like that to where when you make your adjustment there's some interference. So that's the multi-purpose of that little pin. And I think the original patent holder decided that he needed that, but it made his whole device probably had to be quite expensive to manufacture. I think it was taken off the market. I believe that the patent was withdrawn. I think I studied that quite a while ago and found that out, but I could find no information at all on the original one on the internet other than that patent, and someone sent me that patent number. I was not able to find it through a search. Okay, here it is mounted on the boring head in the Bridgeport, and I'm not going to demonstrate it other than what I'm showing you here, but what I'm going to insert here just a moment in this video is a clip from tip 631 part 1. That's the first part, and at about the 20-minute mark you will see me using this to manufacture what I'm making here, so if that made any sense to you. So let's cut to that clip now, which is just a few minutes long. You can go through it extra fast if you've seen it before, but some of you possibly did not see part 1. That's why I'm including it. Have you noticed that after I take my cut, I take 1 or 2 more cuts without increasing the feed, and there's always a little bit being taken off? That's because there is flex in the boring bar. Now, I've got about 12 or 15 thousandths to go, but let's use this instead of the Noga over there. So, again, it slips on like this, and I got to pull back on that until it goes into the hole. In there, and then snug it up, and now I can put the indicator on, zero it out. Boy, don't turn the machine on now, you'd have a catastrophe. And the beauty of this, I can point the indicator in any direction I want. I'll put it back on 0 now, and I'm going to move it in just 5 thousandths, which will take off 10 thousandths. I do not have to worry about the spindle moving a little bit now, so my foot is not on the brake. In other words, you know, that doesn't matter. Watch the needle. And see, it wouldn't matter if I backed off a little bit and lost my place in regards to backlash, because the backlash can be taken out. All you have to do is watch the indicator. So I've moved it 5 thousandths, which means it will take off 10 thousandths. Now I'll remove this real quickly and take another cut. I won't show that, but I'm working up. I like to work up very slowly to what I consider a critical dimension, because I want this to be right on. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. I know that very few people will attempt to make this or see that there's even a need for it, but it was a fun video for me to make, and I hope fun for you to watch. But I have no intention of supplying any castings, but should you want to make one, remember this was made out of 2 pieces, but a larger block of aluminum, this is 1 inch thick, possibly would have to be a little wider than this, but you could do that if you had a notion. And there are no blueprints for this, but a lot of the dimensions were given to you as I went along. So hope you enjoyed this. This is Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, saying so long for now, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget to stay after class for extra credit, where I will show you how I made the castings. The weather has finally warmed up and I'm back in the foundry to start the casting for my boring measuring tool. BORE-RITE, I think I'll call it. I'll speed all this up. My wife is very careless with her toothbrush. She lost it, so she bought herself a new electric one. And you know, they vibrate a little bit, so I'm going to see if they help me vibrate these out. Yes, thank you, Jeanette. She'll never miss it. See what we've got here. Not bad, a little hot yet, but I think we got, ouch, some usable castings.